everyone, welcome back to my channel Side Hustle Seattle. So to kick off 2022, I wanted to start off with what I think is one of the best side hustles you can have, and that's being a remote online notary. So I want to go into how to become a remote online notary, what the benefits are, how much you can potentially make, so that way you can consider if this is a side hustle for you. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. Okay, so before we can get into what a remote online notary is, let's walk it all the way back and let's just talk about what a notary public is in general. So a notary public is essentially just a public official appointed by the state government, typically your Secretary of State, to help deter fraud, right? So notary publics will witness the signing of important documents, they'll verify signers' identities, they'll make sure they're willingly signing documents, they're aware of what they're signing, and some of you may have visited a notary public in the past, but they actually serve a pretty important function. Like, they're involved in some of the most important transactions of your life, right? Like buying a home, selling a home, in power of attorneys, and changing addresses, and renewing passports. So notary public is actually a pretty important and honestly a pretty cool job. Okay, so now that you know what the definition of a notary public is, let's talk about what a remote online notary is. So remote online notary, commonly referred to as a RON, and I'll probably call it RON throughout the rest of the video, is just a commissioned notary public who has authorization to perform notarizations over the internet. And you'll use digital tools and live audio-visual technology in order to do it. In summary, instead of being face-to-face with somebody who needs a document notarized, you'll do it over like a video chat and you'll sign all the documents electronically. That is all a RON is. Some of you may be familiar with what a traditional notary public does and how it works. And even though you just heard the definition of what a RON is, you may not know exactly how the two differ. So let's just look at them side by side. So as a traditional notary, you'll meet the signer face-to-face, and that'll typically happen by you going to them or them coming to you. And they will have a physical document or piece of paper that they need notarized. You guys will sign that document and piece of paper using an ink pen, and you will physically stamp your notarial seal onto the document. So that's how it works as a traditional notary. Now, as a remote online notary, you will be meeting the signer completely remote via online audiovisual technology. So just think like video chat, right? You'll be meeting them completely remote. You guys do not have to be in the same room. You don't have to be in the same state. You don't even have to be in the same country because it is all remote. And the document is no longer a physical document, of course. It's going to be in electronic format. Think of it like a PDF that you'll be signing. And because you're not there to sign in pen and physically stamp your ink stamp onto it, you'll be doing it all digitally. So you'll be using an electronic signature, and you'll be using electronic notarial seal or electronic notarial stamp to actually stamp the document. So you're doing all the same gestures, you're just doing it remotely and you're doing it electronically. So that is the biggest difference when it comes to doing traditional notary work versus doing it remote. Okay, so there's a lot of benefits for becoming a remote online notary versus just sticking to being a traditional notary public or a mobile notary. Number one, you can work from home, right? Like, this is the age of working from home. People do not want to go in the office. People do not want to travel. People want convenience. They want the comfort of their home. And a lot comes with working from home in itself, right? You don't have to spend money on gas, no wear and tear on your car. You don't have to meet strangers face to face. You don't have to physically print any documents. And that is a huge win. That's like one of the number one reasons that I got into remote online notary work. And I also originally got into remote online notary work because I didn't have a car at the time, right? So it was something that I can do without having to have a vehicle. So if you were like me, you also didn't have a car, you don't have a car, great, this is perfect for you. And I think one of the best things about being a remote online notary and a notary public in general is you truly are an entrepreneur, right? So you're your own boss. You can set your own time, you can have your own schedule. But one thing people forget when it comes to being a remote online notary is you can notarize documents for people anywhere. As a traditional notary public, you can only notarize documents for people in your state, right? If I'm commissioned in the state of Colorado, I can only notarize documents for people in Colorado, right? Now, as a remote online notary, as long as I am in Colorado, it doesn't matter where my signer is. Because you're doing it remote, I can notarize documents for somebody in California. I can notarize documents for somebody in Florida. I can notarize someone documents that's in Europe. It doesn't matter. As long as I am physically sitting in the state that I'm commissioned in, the person I'm notarizing the document for can be sitting anywhere. So you just have such a bigger clientele that you can choose from by being a remote online notary versus just being a traditional notary public. And also, let's be clear, like, technology is the wave. People want convenience, people want things to go online. So I truly do think remote online notary work is going to be the future of notary. So now that you have the basics of remote online notary work, let's talk about the who and the how, right? Who can become a remote online notary and how do you actually become one? So who? It varies state by state, and to be clear, remote online notary work is not available in every state, right? There's notary publics in every state, but the ability to do it remotely is not available in every state. I want to say it's available in 35 states, 36 states right now. If that is incorrect, I will put a picture up on the screen for you to be able to see if it's available in your state or not. But generally, to become a remote online notary or even a notary public, you typically have to be 18 years or older, which is great, right? If you're a college kid, this is also something that you can do. You have to, have residency in that state that you're looking to get commissioned in, and you have to have like no felonies. That's pretty much like the broad strokes of who can become a notary public and a remote online notary. So how do you actually become a remote online notary? Like, how do you go about applying for it? So again, it varies state by state, but generally the way it is in most states are you have to become a traditional notary public first. Why? So being a remote online notary, think of it less like its own type of notary and more like permission. Remote online notaries are really just traditional notary publics who have been given permission to also do notarizations remotely. That's all it is. So they make you become a traditional notary public first. After you are, and you want to become a remote online notary, they'll have you pick a provider that you're going to use to perform remote online notarizations. You have to remember, right? You're meeting these people via two-way audiovisual technology. You have to sign documents digitally. You have to make sure it's safe. There has to be all these rules and regulations around it. And so there are companies out there and platforms and providers that help facilitate these transactions. And so your state will have, an approved vendor list that you can pick from, or, a set of criteria that you have to meet in a vendor, and they'll have you pick a provider that you want to use to perform remote online notarizations. Now, there are so many providers out there, and there's a lot of information to learn, and I've had many videos on it, so I'll just post somewhere up on the screen a video so you can look into all the different providers. But you will have to pick a provider that you're planning to use to do remote online notarizations. Once you have a provider you want to use, you can go ahead and apply through your state to become a remote online notary. Now, states will have some other stuff that you may have to do. Maybe you have to take some trainings, maybe you have to take some quizzes, maybe they have, insurance or bonds that you have to get in order to become a notary public or remote online notary. But that's the gist, right? Become a traditional notary public, pick a provider you want to use, apply to be a remote online notary, you're good to go. So honestly, the easiest way to learn how to become a remote online notary is by going to the National Notary Association and looking up your state. So the NNA, or the National Notary Association, is like the mecca of all information notary. So that's where I go first whenever I want to know something and wherever I want to learn something. And they're not sponsoring this. NNA, I wish you would, but they're not. I just think they're great and they're honestly really easy to use. So the National Notary Association has a page that talks about remote online notaries, and it actually has a section where you can toggle your state. And once you do, it'll tell you, one, if it's available in your state, and if it is, it'll tell you the exact steps that you need to do, where you need to go, general information that you need in order to actually be a remote online notary. So instead of you trying to navigate and find all these things, just go to the National Notary Association, find your state, and then go from there. I will link that in the description as well as much as I can to make this easy for you. But I 100% recommend starting there so that way you don't have to go on a wild goose chase to find the information that you need. Because this is remote, right? And because you're going to be using technology, there's equipment needs, right? So let's talk through some of the equipment that you're going to want to have if you are deciding to become a remote online notary. So there's two main things that you have to have in order to actually perform remote online notarizations. One of those is a digital certificate. The other one is an electronic notarial seal. So your digital certificate, I'm not even going to get into the weeds about it. Essentially, it's a way to make your documents tamper evident. So think about it this way. When you're signing a physical document, let's say it's a traditional notary. If you're going to somebody and you're physically signing a document, right? It's very clear if somebody goes back and scratches out your name and writes some other names or changes dates or whatever, right? Because it's in paper and pen. But when it's electronic and it's all digitally, it's a lot harder to know if somebody goes back and changes something. So what a digital certificate does, it's like encryption, right? It tells you who actually signed it, when it was last signed. So if somebody goes back and tries to change something, it'll be evident that it's been messed with for legal reasons. So that is all a digital certificate is, and you can get those through IdenTrust. Again, I will link that in the description so that way you don't have to go find that on your own. Next thing you need is an electronic notarial seal. So because you're not physically stamping a document, you need something that's going to represent your physical stamp. And that's all electronic notarial seal is, an electronic version of your physical stamp. A lot of platforms actually provide those for you and they'll make them for you. But if they don't, you can get them from things like the NNA or other companies where they will make an electronic version of your actual notarial stamp. So you'll need one of those. And of course, you're gonna need things like a laptop or a desktop. You'll want a desk, you'll want good internet, you want it to be in a well-lit area, and you'll want to have access to a camera. If you have to talk to somebody over the web, you need a webcam. Most laptops have it, a lot of desktops have it, but if not, just make sure that you have a webcam. Again, because you're using technology, you want it to be as seamless as possible. So good internet is an absolute must. A computer that has a decent amount of storage in it and a decent amount of RAM. And just making sure that you have a clean area because you are meeting somebody remotely, they're gonna be seeing in back of you, so you wanna make sure you don't have a bunch of junk in back of you, just make sure that you keep it professional. At the end of the day, this is a side hustle. So I know what's on top of everybody's mind is how do you make money and how much money can you make? So again, you're a notary public, right? So you can charge people for doing notarizations. Anybody comes to you and they're like, hey, I need this document notarized, you can charge them a fee. Now, every state varies specifically on what you can charge people for certain things, but the good thing is there is some flexibility. So for Washington, for example, I can charge somebody $25 per notarization when I do it remotely. Somebody comes to me, they're like, hey, I have this one document and I just need one notarization on it. I can charge them a $25 fee just for that single notarization. But what Washington also allows me to do is charge additional fees as long as I make them public and the signer agrees with them ahead of time. So I can be like, okay, I'll charge you $25 for the notarization because that's all I can charge for that. But because you're, reaching out to me after 8 p.m., I'm gonna charge a $10 convenience fee. And, because it costs me $10 to use this platform, I'm gonna pass that on to you and I'll charge you an additional $10. So I'm allowed that flexibility to charge what I want as long as the signer knows and I'm very specific about what exactly I'm charging for. Now that's all great, and that's considered general notary work. When somebody comes to you, 1, 2 documents, etc., that's considered general notary work. Where people make the big money though, is in something called loan signings. So let's get into that for a second. Okay, so if you're a commissioned notary public, you can get certified to be something called a loan signing agent or a notary signing agent. You'll hear it a couple different ways. All a loan signing agent is a notary public who's been trained on how to handle loan documents. That's it. So instead of just notarizing documents, you'll also notarize documents and help walk borrowers through the loan signing process. Because the loan signing process is a lot more involved, it pays more, right? So instead of, like with traditional notary public work, you kind of pay by the stamp. So somebody comes to you, they're like, hey, I have 2 documents and I need 2 notarizations. So you're like, okay, it's gonna be X amount for the first one, X amount for the second one, et cetera, et cetera. But with loan signings, it's typically a flat rate, right? So a title company comes to you, they're like, hey, I have this loan document that needs to be signed. Can you do it? It's paying $150. And so you'll get paid anywhere typically from like $75 to $200 per assignment. And because it's significantly more, your earning potential is just significantly more. Getting certified to become a loan signing agent is honestly pretty easy. Like once you're already commissioned notary public, all you want to do, you're going to go to the National Notary Association. What they're going to do is they're going to run a background check on you, and they're going to make you take a test to prove that you know how the loan signing process works, the definitions, how to walk people through it. And that's it. Once you pass the background check, once you pass the test, you are now a certified loan signing agent. Again, I recommend going to the National Notary Association for it. That's how the majority of people get certified to be a signing agent. It's the most recognized certification that you can get. And they'll make you pay a fee, of course, to run the background check and for you to take the test. But you can get all that done within 24 hours once you're actually a commissioned notary public. So signing agent process, super easy if that's something that you also decide that you want to do. And again, I will link all of that in the description so you don't have to go around finding all of these links. Okay, so let's talk money. How much can you actually make? Because I know that is something that you all want to know. So I would be lying to you if I said that it didn't vary, right? It's gonna depend on your state, it's gonna depend on how well you market yourself, it's gonna depend on your dedication, your passion for it, your drive. Remember, at the end of the day, you are an entrepreneur, right? This is your own business, you're not working for anybody. So what you get out of it is gonna be a direct reflection of what you put into it. But let me use myself, for example. So I have a full-time I do remote online notary work very part-time, like 5 hours or less a week, and I can bring in an extra $1,000 a month. So if you break that down, that's $250 a week. Let's say I'm charging people $25 per notarization. That's only 10 notarizations. Very easy. Or that's 2 or 3 loan signings. That's very easy for you to do. Now, I am I'm on this end of the spectrum because I only do it like 5 hours a week. But there's remote online notaries that do it full time and bring in $8,000 a month, right? So it really just depends on what you're looking for this to be for you. Do you want to do it part-time? It's just like a side hustle. Do you want it to be your main hustle? Like, that's going to also determine how much you potentially make. So one thing I will never do is lie to you, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you're going to become a notary public, you're going to get approved to do remote online notary work, and all of a sudden you're going to become a remote online signing agent, and then your first month in, you're going to make $10,000 a month. That's not going to happen. That's a lie. That is a lie. You remember, you're starting your own business, right? Like, it's going to take a minute for you to get comfortable. It's going to take a minute for you to understand how to market yourself. It's going to take a minute for you to get comfortable with documents and build a name for yourself. But doing what I do, an extra $1,000 a month, $250 a week, like that's nothing. 100% you can absolutely do that. Like, I'm not doing anything special here. I promise you I'm not. I'm not even the best at marketing myself, and I'm not even the most experienced, and I can still do it. So I know if I can do it, you 1000% can do it. And I'm not saying that you'll never make $10,000 a month. I'm not saying you'll never make $8,000 a month like those people that do it full time. I'm just not going to tell you that you can do that your first month, because that would be lying, and that is an unnecessary lie to tell you. But if you want to go for that dream, go ahead and go for it. Honestly, I think people who are very detail oriented, like talking to people, because at the end of the day, you are interacting with people, and are good with technology, make great remote online notaries. You have to remember, from the technology standpoint, it's not about just how comfortable you are. You have to be able to walk other people through it too, because you may know exactly what you're doing, but the person you're notarizing a document for, the signer, may not know what's going on. So you want to make sure you can walk them through the process as well. Okay, so before we wrap up this video, I want to make sure there's a couple things that you just keep in mind before diving into this if you do decide to make this your side hustle. And honestly, I hope you do, because I think it's a great one. One, how are you going to generate business? Again, how are you going to market yourself? Where are you going to market yourself? Do you have a plan for that? What's your schedule going to be like? When are you going to work? When are you not going to work? Are you going to decide to be a signing agent, or are you just going to do general notary work? Because of course, that can also have an impact on your earning potential and potentially how you market yourself. And also, one thing to keep in mind, please know your state laws. Please, please, please. Like, the one thing about notarial work, yes, it's easy to get into. You can do it at 18. There's not that big a barrier to entry. But there are huge legal implications if you make mistakes. So don't go into this and be like, yeah, I'll just fumble through it. No. Know your state laws, know what you can and can't do legally, because the last thing you want to do is get caught up in a lawsuit, and it does happen. So make sure, please, that you know your state laws. But anyways, that is the end of my video. What do you think about being a remote online notary or being a remote online signing agent as a side hustle for 2022 for you? Do you like it? Do you not? Have you already been considering it? Let me know your thoughts. I'm always curious. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.